Welcome to the Growing Your Business podcast, a program created to answer the question, what's in it for me, for both the business and their customers. Today's guest had this to say.
What do we want people to know? We want people to know that financial wellness is universal, and it's something that every single person deserves.
Yeah.
And I would love to be the person that you never knew you needed, but is always in your corner and is going to help you build the financial life of your dreams.
Now, stay tuned as we hear more on their values, mission, and why they continue to grow their business.
Joining me in the studio today is Dan Klonowski with Thrivent Financial. Dan, thanks for coming.
Of course. Thank you for hosting me, buddy.
Excellent. So let's just jump right in the show with what I like to say, what's in it for me.
Of course.
From your clients. How do you serve your clients, Dan?
Yeah, well, I like to have a really polished intake process because the joy of this business is we get to meet people from so many different walks of life, from so many different backgrounds and missions and industries. And so my two favorite questions when I'm meeting someone for the first time is, number one, what's your earliest money memory?
Ooh.
Thinking back into your childhood. Was money talked about? Was it taboo? Did your parents give you an allowance? What did you spend it on if you did have an allowance, right? And what's the first time you really remember thinking about money and, okay, should I save it? Should I spend it? Should I invest it? Who knows what you can do, right? Second question is this, who and what informs the way you think about money?
Interesting.
Right? Because there's so much in the age of digital media, which Buddy's the expert on, of course.
I try.
There's different influencers on Instagram, on LinkedIn, on YouTube, on the news, right? You might be watching the news at night and you see, oh, the S&P dropped 2% today. Might be time to get out of the market. But what does that actually mean in your context?
Yeah.
Is really what we try to accomplish and do. Second thing I would say, in addition to those two questions, which I love, and I always document the answer on my CRM, the three tiers of a plan. So financial planning, it all comes from goals and what you'd like to accomplish. A lot of people that I meet, they have tier one. They have stuff, right? They have maybe various insurance policies, life, disability, long-term care, an IRA, a 401k at work. That's tier one. Okay, we have assets out there, right? Tier two, I have stuff and I have a person. I have a guy or a gal, right, whose name and phone number appears on my statement, and I know kind of in the back of my mind that I could potentially call them if I have a question, but maybe the relationship is not one such that I feel comfortable calling them, especially with the embarrassing questions, right? I'm not sure I understand this. Can you walk me through it? That's where I strive to be in tier three, right? I have not just stuff, but stuff that supports an overall comprehensive plan that both of us are on the same page with, that both of us understand, that you can even articulate outside of my office, right? Because, that leads to a referral conversation when you're talking to your friends. So tier three is I have the pieces in place to build a long-term plan for myself and my family and my household. And by the way, Dan's on call if I ever have a question about that because I've got his cell phone on file.
What are common influences when you talk to people, when you answer question two?
The most common one I hear is Dave Ramsey, right? Who is, of
good.
course, has a huge platform across many different generations.
Interesting. Yeah, it makes sense.
And there is a lot I like about him and his philosophy. Just the way that he helps people think about money and build a budget and say, okay, let's, of course, spend less than we make. Let's look at the debt situation, and rather than burying our head in the sand, let's actually make a plan to pay it all off.
Yeah.
Him and I disagree slightly about the debt conversation, though, because there are, and this is where, individual planning comes into play.
Right.
Dave Ramsey is awesome as a starting point, but he cannot sit in your living room with a cup of coffee.
Yeah.
I can.
Bingo.
Right?
Yep. Ding, ding, ding.
So Right. That's what I strive to do. Is
tier
like,
three
okay,
gets you there. Yeah.
Do you need a new roof? Right. And this is the things I think about with the people in my network too.
Yeah.
You know, the referrals group I go to every Thursday morning. There's a roofer. There's a mortgage guy. There's a outstanding realtor. people like that, home improvement, flooring, the works, right?
Yep.
And often I stood up one Thursday and actually said, a lot of you sell debt, right? Because especially the mortgage
That's
guy,
a good
right?
point. Yeah.
But a lot, sometimes not everyone has it in the cards or in the savings to get a new roof immediately, right? And that's where I can come in, and I can say, okay, you may not have the $10,000 for a new roof. What you do have is you have really good credit, and because we've run the budget with you the month to month, I can see that, okay, if it's a $300, $400, $500 payment, you're going to be just fine funding that as well as your other financial goals as well. So that's where me and Dave kind of take a turn from each other is, yeah, we don't want to be in debt, but we also can plan for it and make it a smart part of, we're trading the debt for a home improvement or a new car or whatever it may be.
Of the financial advisors I know are people like you.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like that's a common thing where Dave Ramsey is the platform he has is kind of a general financial education. If you're paying attention to him, you're getting a general financial education because he's not a person that, like you said, can sit across from you and have coffee and really do a deep dive into you as a person. And that, like you said, that's the value. My wife she always has an earbud in her ear and she's listening to somebody. Sometimes it's Dave Ramsey, and there's value there. But the types of customers you're looking for, we have a guy that we feel comfortable calling that can solve and answer the dumb questions that we're not going to call into Dave's show and ask him, hey, Dave,
because that's going to be broadcast to so many people all over the world, right?
And that's the other trick is, our finances, it's a very personal thing. When I look at your question number 2, the influence, it's based on your needs, and there's so many ways that you fulfill your own needs. And also, in my case, I've heard what people like me are called the sandwich generation. I'm in the middle of aging parents who have needs. And in my case, I've got a blended family. We have 6 kids. So 6 kids, and I say 6 kids, they're all adultish, but they definitely have financial needs. They definitely have a need to understand their own finances. And so do you have customers like me, I imagine you do, who are in the sandwich situation here?
I do. And I want to ask about, so you mentioned you have 6 kids, ages
17 to 24.
70 to 24. Okay.
Yep.
They are entering what I actually call the second sandwich generation.
Second sandwich, okay.
Because here's the thing, right? That generation, 20s, 30s, first of all, I am one. I just turned 30. Happy
Congratulations.
Birthday to me.
Yeah. And happy birthday.
Thank you. And so the way that generation thinks about money, why I call it the second sandwich is they know they need to be building wealth. Yep. They need to be contributing to a 401k, IRA, whatever it is, but they're also in debt, right? Yep. They're, the student debt is real, yep. Right?
Student loans or whatever.
If they want to have a car, we live in Dallas-Fort Worth where it's impossible, almost not to have a car. So that's the second sandwich generation. To answer your original question, so the original sandwich generation, the big sandwich generation, yes, that is where we talk about balancing the goal of I want to provide for the next generation. And I also, of course, hopefully the first thing I'm thinking about is I want to provide for myself and my spouse and make sure that we don't work forever and we can retire and we can put together all the pieces. So on that end of the spectrum, 50s, 60s, we start to talk very seriously, buddy, about where is the retirement income going to come from?
A very important question for someone like me. Yeah.
When you turn off you're not getting a paycheck anymore, right? Yeah, the company, or in your case, your own company, right, is not going to pay you anymore. So I'm going to rely on Social Security. I'm going to rely on my savings that I built up for, 30, 40 years. If I'm lucky enough to have a pension, which we'll talk about teachers later because that's my professional history.
Oh, interesting.
Right.
Yeah.
All of these things kind of put together, and they need to equal a number, right? Yeah. Hopefully it's the same number that you were making while you were in your working years.
Yeah. In
many cases, we would love for it to be more because we want to send you to Bermuda, right?
The lifestyle you're used to or better. Yeah.
Right. Because you have the time to do that now.
So Dan, tell me about specific areas of focus, like basically your specialty.
Of course, yeah. So, And financial advisors, we do have to have a specialty, buddy, because let's face it, I mean, I could write an annuity on anyone, but is that the right thing to do? Maybe not. I've come up with 3, right? And they are this. Nonprofit professionals is a huge one for me.
Oh.
People who have a huge heart and honestly a drive to look long-term and say, what are we shooting at?
Yeah.
Right? Teachers as well. That's my professional history, right? I spent 6 years in the classroom, learned a lot from it. One of the things I learned was that I didn't want to do it long term, unfortunately.
I unfortunately hear that from a lot of teachers. It's a brave soul that can do that as a career for their entire career.
Same concept. So these are people, and then churches and church members as well. Especially people who are on the the leadership board, the pastor, the board of directors, the church council, whatever the particular denomination calls it. All of these 3 niche markets share one thing in common: nonprofit, pros, teachers, churches. We're mission driven. We're looking into the future and saying the world could be better. How are we going to make it better? And that's not always an easy question to answer. But the reason I love working with people like that is I don't have to, explain the necessity of long-term planning to them.
Yeah.
The same way that they long-term plan for the success of their organization or the success of their school and their students, I can say, think about you for a moment. What does financial wellness look like for you and your family a year from now so that we can start the relationship, but also 10, 20, 30 years into retirement and even past it, because we want you to live a full life in retirement as well.
That's terrific. You mentioned your transition, your entire career. Mm-hmm. Tell me about the history of that transition from teaching to what you do.
Right. I began looking for a new job and kind of a new industry, honestly, in the spring of 2022. And I kind of knew that I wanted to get into, a people-facing role, something that would allow me, again, because that's my strength, is gift of the gab, right?
Right.
I'm a pastor's kid as well, so that's part of my professional background.
That comes with the job of being a pastor's kid.
Oh, of course, right? So this kind of fell in my lap, honestly. In one of my first interviews with Thrivent, I asked my manager, Larkin Braxton, do you often recruit teachers? And he said, well, sure, because here's the thing. He had looked at my LinkedIn profile and he said, okay, you're a teacher, which means you know how to make, complicated stuff seem simple. That's a skill in and of itself.
Yeah, bingo. Right?
Financial literacy, the million mutual funds out there and hedge funds and annuities, it's all Greek, right? Well, so it takes a translator, right? Someone to take all the stuff and translate it into, okay, how does this work for my family? He also said, Dan, you're an athlete, right? My second career is I referee soccer and basketball in the evenings. And so you know how to set a goal, break it down, and stick to it, because that's what athletes do.
Yeah.
Right? And so he said, for those 2 reasons, I want you to move on in this hiring process. And I did.
Stay with us. The Growing Your Business podcast will return right after this. The Growing Your Business podcast is sponsored in part by Visual Learning Solutions. Stands out with its expertise in crafting immersive audio and video experiences. Their creative team has over 30 years of experience delivering dynamic internal training programs tailored to various industries. They ensure the audience receives a compelling message, promotes brand awareness, and increases return on investment. They also excel in producing marketing content. Learn more at their website, visuallearningsolutions.com. Please check our show notes for sponsorship links and additional details. Now, back to the Growing Your Business podcast with Buddy Broyles.
Tell me a success story. I know you have a wide range of clients,
right?
Because I know sometimes people come to you they're at tier 1 or sub tier 1. Like they're like, basically, Dan, I don't know. I haven't even looked at my finances. I don't know. Mm-hmm. Talk to me about someone that you've brought in and have helped them to see the light, I guess you could say.
Yeah. And it's an ongoing process,
yeah,
as a lot of them are, because I mean, the value add is I'm going to stick with you for hopefully 20, 30 years,
Yeah.
whatever it is until retirement, and then beyond that. But the one that comes to mind is one that, we just started the professional relationship. I've known this family maybe for a year now. So Thrivent supports their organization out in Fort Worth. It's one of the ones that we care about very deeply and generate revenue for.
Terrific.
But the business conversation started at kind of a Greasy Spoon diner at one of their fundraiser events for the organization, which is where all good business conversations start.
Around a meal,
waffles or really greasy sandwiches or something like that.
Sure.
And my contact said, I would love to talk to you about money, but here's the thing: we're going to lead with debt, right? Because we've moved from out of state. We had a business there. The business didn't go as well as we thought, so we have an SBA loan. We have student loans. We have some in credit cards. We're trying to pay off the home improvement, and there's all this stuff. Again, there's stuff, right? That we need your help sorting through all the stuff, right? And so what we did is this: we took all the different lines of credit, put them all together. We figured out, okay, there's $93,000. By the way, they were already, at their peak, they were at $130,000, right? So they had already done an outstanding job of paying some of this back.
Yeah.
So
a good chunk of it's gone.
Right. They're a quarter of the way there.
Yeah.
Now what we do is myself and a really good mentor of mine sat down with them and we said, okay, what does the budget actually look like? Month to month, how much are you making? How much are you spending? And to get the most accurate numbers, we need to see your pay stub, because those numbers don't lie.
Yeah.
Right? So pay stub comes in. We see, okay, is there anything on the pay stub, first of all, that, you don't need to be paying for, right? Really interesting, benefit packages that are coming out of your check, but you never use them, right? Secondly, is we said, okay, let's run through all the bills, literally all of them, like rent, mortgage, groceries, kids' activities, because they've got 2 little boys. And then let's see what spits out the other side. We discovered that they've got about $1,300 to $1,400 a month extra, right? Between expenses and income. And so we said, okay, let's repurpose some of that. Let's take a big chunk of it, $1,000, and let's increase the debt payments. We're going from minimum payments to, okay, we're
as much as we can afford.
As much as we can realistically afford.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, it's also a win-win situation because, me and my mentor, we don't make the commission off of the debt necessarily, but it is a part of the financial plan. And what we said is this, we are going to redesign your insurance plan because heaven forbid if one of you is gone or if one of you is hurt, the income's not going to be there to pay off the debt, right?
Yeah.
So we did get a business proposition out of it too. We're going to work with them over the next 3 years. We did, and this is the kicker here, we cut them down from 17 years making minimum payments until they were debt-free to just under 3 years.
Oh, my gosh.
Right?
Boy, and at that point, from their perspective, they can see the light at the end of the tunnel. 3 years is a blink.
3 years is a blink of the eye.
That's terrific.
Meanwhile, they still have, discretionary income to start the retirement picture again, to make sure their boys are taken care of. And then guess what? As each line of credit gets paid off, there's more and more. And that's why it went from 17 to 3. Because this is where Dave Ramsey comes in, the snowball debt thing, right? $1,000 right now to 7 different lines of credit. Once one is paid off, it's 6, 5, 4.
Yep. And
eventually, look at us, we're debt free, right?
Yep. Well, that's terrific. I want to turn the conversation just a little bit to, I'm seeing some branding you brought here to the studio, Live Generously. Tell me about that. Tell me about that initiative or program.
Yeah. So this T-shirt is our main marketing campaign. Honestly, it's how we get the word out into the sphere. Thrivent has a much bigger presence in the upper Midwest, which is actually where I, hail from. Headquarters in Minneapolis. I grew up in Chicago. But but we're growing the brand here. And so the reason for the Live Generously shirts, I mean, this is what we give away. It's also, of course, the Live Generously moniker. That's one of our pillars, right? Yeah. A lot of companies have, including us, right, the 5 pillars of what we want to do. Ours are advice, insurance, investments, banking, and generosity, right? So that's how high we hold it, right? Yeah. Is we want to make it a central part of what we do, along with the other 4 I mentioned. Live Generously means we are a not-for-profit company. We have no corporate debt. We have no bonds. We actually have 501c8 status with the IRS. So we also don't pay corporate taxes. Instead, what we do is this. We get audited every year, and the IRS says, okay, how much money did you direct back into the community that you're working and serving in? Last year, that totaled about $300 million across the country.
That's
right?
Terrific.
Our members get to be a part of that, right? Because they know the needs of their local community better than anyone.
Yeah.
We work with a lot of churches, neighborhood organizations, right? Because that's our target market. We are, founded in the Christian church over 100 years ago. And that continues to be kind of our driving force. We don't want to throw Christianity in people's faces, as is often the case. But we do want to say, like, okay, this is what we hold dear.
Right.
And this is how we express it. We want to give you, for example, our Action Team program, $500 a year to go and take care of a need in the community. Hopefully, that $500 sparks, a much bigger fundraiser or solution to something.
Yeah, giving creates more giving.
Giving creates more giving.
And allows people the resources to do what they need to. That's terrific.
So live generously, everyone. That's the message, and that's what we're here to help you do. Right. I mean, there is a business side of it, of course, because generosity ain't free.
Right.
Right. So how do we fund all this? That's the advice, the insurance, the banking, the investments. But then the generosity piece is what we and our customers get to bring back to the community.
That's fabulous. And for those who are just listening, check the YouTube channel because it'll have the video so you can see Dan's cool shirt. But and it's important to see that. But for those of you listening, he's got a pin and a shirt that says "Live Generously" with a big heart, and it looks like it's almost a Sisyphean thing, is someone carrying a big heart on their shoulders,
yes.
or actually as a group. Yeah, so that's pretty cool, Dan. Talk to me about the best way to reach you, what's a good way to get in touch with you?
Best way to get in touch with me is I communicate best by phone, but go to my website. So that's connect.thrivent, THRIVENT.com /Dan-Klonowski, DAN-KLONOWSKI. That'll tell you everything you need to know as far as, where my offices are. And then best thing to do is, my office cell phone is on there too. I tell everyone it rings in my pocket wherever I may be over creation.
Yeah, great.
Whether I'm in one of my 2 offices or I'm just, driving around in the car, my brain is always on call.
Excellent. That's excellent. And I tell everybody this, check the show notes. Whatever Dan gives me here is going to be there, so don't panic if you couldn't write that down if you're driving. Just when you get to a safe place, scroll down and you'll see all of Dan's contact info. Parting thoughts, Dan. What do you want people to take away from this conversation?
I want people to take away that there is a financial plan and financial wellness available to everyone. Regardless of where you're starting and regardless of where you're ending. That comes from my background in teaching, right? So, because I haven't mentioned it yet, the first 6 years of my career I spent as a K through 12 math teacher. From that, I learned a couple of different things. One, I love numbers and I love problem solving, right? And a lot of people can't, math might have been their phobia, right? So I get to bring that to the masses and say, I can help you out here. I never stop teaching math, right? I just teach it to a different audience, right? Yeah. From 12-year-olds to families and households and adults, right? Second thing, that taught me a love of mentorship, right? I want to take someone from where they are now to where they would like to be. And that goes to the dreams conversation. Where do you want to be and how can we help you get there? And then I just wanted to serve something that is bigger than myself, people and institutions that are greater than myself. So that's everything I took from teaching that I've applied to the new career. To answer your question, okay, what do we want people to know? We want people to know that financial wellness is universal, and it's something that every single person deserves.
Yeah.
And I would love to be the person that you never knew you needed, but is always in your corner and is going to help you just build the financial life of your dreams.
That's terrific. Well, Dan, I can't thank you enough for coming to the studio and sharing your knowledge with us.
Thank you, buddy.
Thank you for joining us today on the Growing Your Business podcast. Please see the show notes for links to our sponsors, our social media, and to learn more about today's guest.